What is up? The Tewaaraton Watch List came out last week before all the weekend's games commenced, and just a ton of players. I'm actually surprised that a few names aren't on the list, but I suspect, depending on how it works, that they may get added to the list. So I wanted to go through and talk about them, but first I wanted to rip through the history of the Tewaaraton Award. It's an attackman's award. Since 2001, the first year they gave it out, 14 attackmen have won the award to just 4 midfielders over that time. And even worse, early on was when those midfielders had won it. Over the first 9 years of the award, between 2001 and 2009, 5 attackmen won to 4 mids. So it was fairly evenly split, but back then it was a different game. Midfielders back then were more prone to offensive outbursts and to dominating a little bit more, where I think in today's game, for the sake of, resting and keeping guys healthy throughout the year and making sure that you always have the best legs on the field looking for matchups, I think teams now more than ever, more than they used to, go to a 2-line midfield, sometimes even a 3-line midfield. So that's not to say there aren't teams that run their ones more. I feel like Duke is a team that runs their ones more than a lot of teams. I think Syracuse is starting to get back to that now, partially just out of necessity, but back in the olden days, it was more of a midfielder's game offensively than it is today. And awards like this typically go to the offensive players. It's just how it works. It's such an offensive players award that since 2010, nothing but attackmen have won it. And in 2014, 2 attackmen won it the same year, with Lyle and Miles Thompson sharing the award. So it's an attacker's award. The chances are an attackman is going to win it this year, and there's only one guy that even has a legitimate shot of winning it if it's not an attackman, and I'll get to that. So as always, be sure to like and subscribe. I just got to throw this out there here before we get into it. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Of all the things at this point that you could do to help us out, because we do this for free, I do this for free, is you could like the video and you could subscribe to the channel. Those are the 2 main things that we ask. It's not a whole lot, so come on, help us out. Okay, so let's get into the attackers first, because realistically, these guys are the guys that have the better shot. I think that I'll start with the guy who I think has the best shot, and that's going to be Pat Spencer, senior out of Loyola. He's currently sitting at 14 goals, 12 assists, 26 points, 6.5 points per game. He's played some tough competition, and Loyola right now is sitting at 4-1. Even in the game that they lost to Towson, he still went 1-4 on the day, and they threw everything they had at him, and he was still able to go 1-4. So I think Pat Spencer, he's got the best shot, but the other guys aren't too far behind. We get into Grant Ament, Penn State senior, 7 goals, 24 dishes, 31 points, 7.75 points per game. So Penn State A is a very good team, well-rounded team, and their shot at making it to championship weekend is excellent. Grant Ament with that 7.75 points per game. If it wasn't so assist heavy, I'd say that I'd even start giving him the nod over Spencer, but Spencer's points have just been different. He's just a beast. I feel like teams are forced to key on him a little bit more maybe than Ament, although Ament's trashing on teams pretty bad, but Penn State has a lot of very well-rounded players like Mac O'Keefe. They've got a couple of guys that you have to put effort towards stopping. Not that Loyola doesn't, and we're starting to see that with Lindley and Scanlon tearing it up as well, but something about Penn State that's just different. Their offensive scheming is different, so even though Ament's putting up more points per game at this point than someone like Spencer, I think that the reality is Spencer is the guy right now, and I think his team has a better shot at making it to championship weekend than Penn State does right now, but I'm terrible at predicting things, so take that with a grain of salt. I think those are the 2 top guys right now, and I think then everyone else is just a hair below them. Jeff Teat, he may end up at the top of that list. I had him as my early favorite for Cornell. I think Cornell just has a lot of weapons, and I think that's going to take a lot off of Teat's plate. But right now, he's sitting at 10 goals, 4 assists, 14 points, 7 points per game after just 2 games. So let's let him get some more games under his belt before I start putting him in the company of Ament and Spencer right now, because they have a greater body of work to compare. But Teat is right up there for Cornell junior attackman. And then we've got Chris Gray. I don't like Gray's chances. I throw him in here towards the top because his points production is insane. 14 goals, 20 assists, 34 points all in, 6.8 points per game. So he's playing ridiculous lacrosse. Boston U sitting at, I believe, 4-1, but A, he's a sophomore, and B, he's playing for Boston U. This is an award that's typically given to a big market team. Now, let's say you look at like an Albany player winning it. That's not a big market team, but they were. The Albany was kind of a sexy team, over the years with the Thompsons, and you couldn't argue that the Thompsons were the best players in the game at the time. So Gray, I don't think he's really got a shot, but he's playing legitimate ass lacrosse, so he at least deserves to be mentioned. Another guy, I don't think he's going to win this award, partly because he hasn't lit the world on fire, but he plays for a legitimate big market team at this point, is Jackson Morrill. 5 goals, 12 helpers, 17 points, 5.6 points per game. So Morrill has been playing tough for Yale. He's the reason they're sitting at 2-1 now, as opposed to being 1-2. He had a big game just this past weekend in the overtime win over UMass, putting up, I think I said 1-3 over the course of the final 17, 18 minutes or so of that game. So Morrill's going to factor in. He's going to be huge, and he's a legit contender. I still don't put him at the level of the other two, Spencer and Ament. Then we got Michael Sowers. He is one of my early season favorites. I think legitimately the top 3 attackmen right now in the country are Sowers, Spencer, and Ament. So I think that those are really the top 3 guys, the way they're playing. And then Teat, once we see if he continues his tear, then we're going to throw him in there and we're going to go with the top 4. So Michael Sowers, 6 goals, 7 assists, 13 points, 6.5 points per game. Just not a huge body of work yet. Princeton's at 1-2 on top of it. So his chances are going to hinge on Princeton winning more games than they lose and making it into the tournament and making noise. But the fact that I don't think his team's there yet to help him that much, I think is going to end up hurting him in the end. And then a couple of guys I wanted to kind of say, like, what's up with these guys is Jared Bernhardt from Erlin. I had him as one of my top 5 attackers coming into the season. I thought he was going to tear it up. He's currently sitting at 16 goals, 7 assists, 23 points, 4.6 points per game. I'd almost put Logan Wisnauskas ahead of him, outside of the fact Wisnauskas is just a sophomore. He's probably benefiting from Bernhardt getting a little bit of extra attention. Either way, big market team in Maryland. Bernhardt, depending on how he continues on this season and how far Maryland goes, because this award is voted on after the tournament. That puts Bernhardt in a position to contend towards the end. He's not in my top 3 or 4 yet, but he could end up there depending on how the season plays out for him. Another one that I had thought highly of, who has not panned out this season, and he's the big what's up with this guy, is Michael Kraus. I know he's been battling a high ankle sprain, and right now, though, after I believe Virginia's played 5 games, 4 goals, 7 assists, 1.75 points per game for Kraus. Now, Matt Moore, I'm going to talk about him in a little bit at the midfield. I think he's been playing attack, and he's been the hot player for Maryland thus far, or for Virginia thus far. So the fact that Kraus is a junior, and if he could just get hot and maybe get healthy, then he's going to be the more likely candidate from Virginia. But Matt Moore has been playing excellent. So Kraus, watch him. He's going to be okay in the end, but he's been battling an injury, and I think he just needs to get his feet under him. Honorable mention, a guy not on the watch list that I want to see go on the watch list, if I had any say, Brendan Sunday, senior out of Towson. Towson, you heard it. I said Towson. I'm talking to you. I think, who was it? Is it Mike that keeps harassing me about the Towson thing? So Sunday, senior out of Towson, 14 goals, 9 assists, 24 points, 6 points per game. So he's tearing it up for Towson. He's one of the reasons Towson's sitting pretty right now. I believe they're 4-1 with a win over Loyola, and he had a big game against Loyola as well. So I think that he deserves to be mentioned, and I believe they'll probably add him to the watch list, assuming they do add more players, which I think they do. And then the guy in the middle, I'm going to talk about midfielders now. Matt Moore is listed on the watch list as a sophomore midfielder. I believe he's been playing primarily attack for Virginia. 9 goals, 10 dishes, 19 points, 4.75 points per game. So if he is a midfielder, he is right up there at the top of anyone that has a chance to win this award as a midfielder. But I'd assume you'd have to call him an attackman at this point. We'll see how the season pans out, though, with Virginia. They've got a couple of young attackmen that have been getting a little bit of time here and there also. The main midfielder that I think has the best shot, and I think he'll win one either this year or next year, depending on how Yale does. Yale has to make it to the Final Four for this kid to have a shot, is Teat Erlin. Question, Erlin or Ierlan? I've said Erlin. I believe everyone else calls him Erlin, but the Yale announcers, the guys who did the Yale game last week when they played Penn State, were calling him Teat Ierlan. So do they know something I don't know? Hit me in the comments or Facebook or whatever and let me know. Is it Erlin or Ierlan? Either way, 61 out of 82 draws won so far at the Faceoff X, 74.3%. He's got a goal on 2 shots. The kid has been dominant. He is truly the reason Yale right now is sitting at 2-1. Without his faceoff dominance, Yale could legitimately be looking at 0-3 right now. If he didn't come to Yale, legitimately Yale could be 0-3. He's been that much of a difference maker so far in the season. And we just haven't seen a face-off guy dominate. Baptiste dominated the game, but Erlin is kind of a different animal. So he's still got time. He's got this year and next year to continue to rock it out. So Erlin, I think, has the best shot of a midfielder, but I think it's still going to an attackman this year. The other midfielder that I'm going to go through these guys a little bit more quickly because realistically they deserve to be mentioned, but they probably aren't winning this award. Dox Aitken, Virginia junior midfielder. He's got 12 goals, 2 helpers, 14 points, 2.8 points per game. So for a midfielder, that's high. I have nothing but high praise for Aitken. He's a literal two-way midi, plays excellent between the boxes, rides well, and is always an offensive threat. He's got a cannon on him. Bryan Costabile is my other favorite midfielder, and just in terms of me liking them. I don't think these two have a chance at winning it necessarily, but I love these guys. Costabile, 2 games for Notre Dame, 7 goals, 1 assist. He is a sniper, and his dodging has improved greatly. As a sophomore, he was an excellent dodger, and as a junior, it's going to continue to progress. So Costabile, I love him, junior out of Notre Dame. Another guy doesn't have a shot, but he deserves mention. Brendan Curry has been he's one of the key reasons Syracuse is 2-2. I'll say Drake Porter is another reason, and the defense playing tougher is, but Brendan Curry, sophomore mid, 7 goals, 6 helpers, 13 points, 3.25 points per game. So he's been leading Syracuse, and as guys, as Solomon's been trying to work it out, and as Rafis has been trying to come back from the flu, he's been huge. Curry has. So as Rafis specifically starts to get a little bit healthier, he looked a lot better in the loss against Virginia. I think Curry, that's just going to free him up even more. So I think you're going to see Curry have a huge breakout season and become one of the best midfielders in the country. And then you got to name Brad Smith in that group. Once again, I think he's like Marr. I think he's been playing attack, but he's listed still on this watch list as a midfielder. Senior out of Duke, 7 goals, 7 assists, 14 points, 2.33 points per game. That's actually, his points per game are higher because he hasn't played in every game for Duke, so that number's wrong. But once he's back to fully healthy again, and I think he may have had an ankle issue or some kind of lower leg issue. Once he's healthy again, watch out for him, and depending on how Duke does, he's a legit contender. He could end up in that top 5 spot as long as Duke gets themselves into the quarterfinals and then into the semis. Last but not least, I'm going to list a guy defensively that I know deserves mention, but I don't think he has a shot legitimately at winning it. Chris Fake out of Yale. Listen, there's other defenders that deserve mentioning. There's long pole mids that we could mention, but realistically, why? They're not going to win the award. They've never won this award specifically. Now, we'll do a show on Defenders of the Year, and we'll probably get into that, not next weekend, but maybe 2 or 3 weeks out once we have a little bit more statistical numbers to run and analyze. But Chris Fake, 4 ground balls, 4 caused turnovers, but 4 turnovers himself, which kind of negate that caused turnover. So Fake, though, one of the best on-ball defenders in the country. I feel like he's still struggling a little bit off-ball, and the next thing that he needs to learn to do is to really anchor and carry and lead the defense. He's already leading it by example in the way that he plays on-ball defense like a damn savage, but he needs to do a little bit better job, I think, communicating. I've seen a couple of picks, back crease picks that have been awkward still despite his prowess as a defender. So I think that's the kind of stuff he needs to work on. But he's a sophomore, so I say this year he doesn't have a shot, but depending on Yale's future over the next 2-3 years, next 2 years after the season, if he could anchor that defense and get crazy and continue to progress as an on-ball defender, continue to get better as a team leader on the defensive side of the field, Chris Fake could be. He's good enough and he has the talent that he could eventually be the first defender to win the Tewaaraton. Probably not, but he could be. So let's go Fake. But that is my rambling. As always, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you get notified about videos. But like I always say, if you just give us that quick little thumbs up and you subscribe, that is the main thing that we ask. And I appreciate everyone. We're finally over 3,000 subscribers. I think we went over sometime in the middle of the night last night while I was shooting the recap show. So thank you for watching this stuff. I can't believe that you guys actually tune in. Apparently I'm doper than I thought.